I'm not fully convinced that the time was right. There would be enough people, how the young people would respond, how the true remnant, how big the true remnant was really, and how the people would react and how independents would react. Let me tell you, although I was reluctant to do it, in the last year I have learned that our numbers are great, as a meeting like this testifies. Our numbers are great and they're growing. The message is not complicated. The message is loud and clear. America is a great country, has been a great country, but we are losing our way. If we don't reverse course, we will no longer remain great.
Yes.
And this is in all areas. We could even start with, the moral values of the people have drifted, but also the political values have drifted as well, and they often go together. But if you look at the fiscal affairs of this country, they're in terrible shape. We just now went through the proposal of next year's budget. And of course, we have a conservative administration. But our conservative administration has proposed a budget that is now $400 billion in debt to begin with. And that's not counting the additional $200 billion that will be borrowed from the trust funds that they don't even count. So if we want our fiscal house in order, we have to do some cutting. Because one thing I've noticed over this last year is the energy that comes from the young people. And the young people know what they're getting.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
And they're getting a lot of debt. They're getting a foreign policy that has committed us for a long, long time. A war that's going on that needs to end as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about foreign policy. For fiscal reasons, we need to come home. For moral reasons, we need to come home. For constitutional reasons, we need to come home. But one thing they like to do is they turn it around, and those who want to continue this foreign policy say, oh, you who believe in the Constitution, you're a bunch of isolationists and you want to go back to the Dark Ages. That obviously is not true. And then they'll turn around and we'll have resolutions passed in the Congress. And the resolutions will be support the policy, support the troops, and stay there forever. Because if you don't, you're going to be construed as not being loyal to the troops, which is wrong. Just think of how many troops would be alive and well and not injured if we would have had a constitutional approach to going to war.
That's right!
Greatest amount of reassurance in talking about foreign policy is what happens when people decide to donate money to the various campaigns. In the last quarter, our campaign received more money from active military personnel than all the Republicans and all the Democrats put together. Reassurance that we are on the right track. They want to be assured that they don't have to go into no-win wars. My views were formulated in the 1960s in many ways. I was studying medicine, I was reading economics, but I was also in the military. I was called to duty in 1962 during the crisis in Cuba. But I stayed in extra time. I stayed in for 5 years. But the 60s were tough times. Tough times here at home and tough times overseas. And philosophically, we were told that we could have guns and butter and we could pay for it. We didn't have to worry. At that time, the policy was run by the Democrats and the Republicans were elected in 1968 for the purpose of supposedly to stop that, to stop the guns and butter. It took 4 more years after the election of 1968 and 30,000 more Americans were killed until we finally ended that war. And this has been in my mind, it's just so senseless to do this, and I finally came to the conclusion. We could avoid these wars if we only went to war with a declaration, then go in and fight them and win them. Korea was under a UN resolution, I have come to the firm conclusion that this nation should never go to war under UN resolution.
That's right!
We still have a lot of money in this country. We spend a lot, but we waste way too much. We have some responsibility. One is national defense. But with the foreign policy we have now, we actually have a weakened national defense. We are more exposed to terrorism now than ever before. We have our troops with equipment that's not in good shape. We have the morale low because some of our troops have been over there 3 and 4 times. They finally served their 5 or 6 years. They get out, they're recalled and sent back over again. And I'll tell you what, I think we're in worse shape militarily now than we were.
That's right, Dr. Paul.
From defense. It detracts from the protection of our own borders. We neglect our own borders while pretending to take care of the world. We need to protect our borders. We actually have border guards in Iraq training other border guards. And talk about 9/11. I made a statement which I'm convinced absolutely correct. Is that on 9/11, because of our flawed foreign policy and looking outward and not looking inward to protect ourselves, on 9/11, Seoul, Korea was better protected than Washington, D.C., and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Financially, we as taxpayers are being bled. We are being taxed to operate this foreign policy where we go over and we destroy other countries by bombing without a full declaration of war or a good reason. We go over and blow up their infrastructure. Then we come back, they come back, the government re-taxes us to go over and rebuild their country. At the same time, we're rebuilding their bridges, our levees, and our bridges are falling down here. We ought to take care of our problems.
That's right!
Responsibility for that we seem to always neglect. We make an attempt, we spend some money, but we never spend enough and we never do a good enough job. And that is in the area of taking care of our veterans. We must do a much better